Alright, so have you ever heard stories about planes or ships or people disappearing when going through the area called the Bermuda Triangle? If so, do you know exactly what happened? And if there's an explanation, do you believe it? Because many of the stories end up in the same place, being a mystery. So obviously this is the Bermuda Triangle, but unfortunately I don't have the answers as to what happened to those mysteries, but I will talk about the legend where it originated, some of the explanations or theories that people have come up with, and a couple of the more popular stories that happened in that area. So first of all, the very first person that encountered and actually reported something happening in this area was in 1492 by Christopher Columbus. And from the website unexplainedstuff.com, it says that in his log, Columbus noted that his compass readings were askew within the area now called the Bermuda Triangle, and he and his crew were confused by shallow areas of sea with no land nearby. As to why his compass was being out of line, we don't know. And Christopher Columbus actually did not use the term Bermuda Triangle. It was not used until 1964 by Vincent H. Gaddis. And from the same website, it says that Gaddis claimed that several ships and planes had disappeared without explanation in that area. The article is expanded and included in his book, Invisible Horizons, True Mysteries of the Sea, where he described 9 mysterious incidents and provided extensive detail. 9 years after that, someone actually came out with a better book, and it kind of got people's interest. From the same website, it says Charles Burles's 1974 bestseller, The Bermuda Triangle, marked the height of the disaster area legend, but some of its sensationalized claims were quickly proved inaccurate. So he might have exaggerated a bit to catch people's attention, but that's where it started, and people got interested and were more curious about the area. So with all the reports and stories, real or fake, people have become more curious about the Bermuda Triangle's mysteries, and people have wondered what exactly happened in that area. So many people have come up with their own explanations or theories. My first explanation is magnetic variation, also known as magnetic declination. And it is, what is it? It is the angle difference between magnetic north and true north. The compasses that we use today points to the magnetic north. And if you want true north, you'd have to do the math depending where you're at. So if you're in the west, you'd have to add a certain amount of degrees, and if you're in the east, you'd have to subtract a certain amount of degrees. And this is a map that would determine that. And if this was the current map, you'd have to add 15 degrees. If you just have to figure out where you are at, and then over there in the east is you have to subtract. And that black line is actually where the magnetic north and the true north line up. And this is converting from true north to magnetic north. If you want to convert the other way around from magnetic to true, just do the opposite. In the west, if you're in the west, you would subtract. So you have to adjust your compass if you want to figure it out. So using an old map also would not help because the declination changes over time. According to compassdude.com, when the map was printed, the rate of change was 6.9 minutes west each year, but it has now sped up to 9 minutes west each year. So each year, obviously, it changes, so you need to update your map or look online. So if sailors and pilots did not know about this, they can go off course without even realizing it, and this is what people might believe might have caused some of the vanishings, or maybe even all. My second theory is the electronic fog. Sounds kind of sketchy, but what is it? It is a cloud of electromagnetic field that forms above the ocean, and it forms out of nowhere. And it engulfs the ship or the aircraft. For example, if the plane goes through a fog, it doesn't really go through it. It's like as if the fog would attach to the plane or the ship, and it'll like go on the ride along with you. There's a story that on unsolvedrun.com of Bruce Gernot, and I'm just going to summarize it. He was flying with his father and a guest over the Bermuda Triangle, and witnesses saw a cloud form in front of the plane and behind the plane, and it engulfed their plane. And inside the tunnel, a vortex formed and spiral shapes were inside, and they experienced weightlessness, and instruments malfunctioned, and the compass was spinning, and says that normally that flight would take them around 75 minutes, but this time only 35 minutes had gone by, and they had traveled over 200 miles in that time. The plane was verified as having left radar screens and reappeared on radar when they left the tunnel. So since you're in that fog and all your electronics are not working, you're not going to show up on the radar until you're out of it. So he actually encountered that and reported it, and it's really one of the popular stories of this theory. So there are some crazy explanations out there, including UFOs, alien abductions, Atlantis, and sea monsters, but these are just two of the more realistic ones. And with that being said, I have a couple of interesting incidents that happened in the Bermuda Triangle. The first one is the USS Cyclops, and from BermudaTractions.com, is a carrier ship used to supply fuel to the American fleet during World War I, and it was used to displace 12,000 tons of water and was 522 feet long. So this is how big it was. And on January 8, 1918, it was to set sail to Rio of Brazil to unload coal and get manganese ores in return. And it arrived there on January 28 and was to dock there for 2 weeks. On February 16, it set sail again with 390 people on board and 10,000 tons of manganese ores. On March 3rd, the captain took the ship to Barbados, saying that they needed more fuel and supplies. And the next day, they were set to set sail back home to Baltimore, and they were expected to arrive there on March 13. However, they were never heard of again. So when March 13 came, a massive search began, but they found no trace of this ship. So the next one is the most famous one. It's called Flight 19. 5 Avengers took off of a practice bombing run on December 5th, 1945. It consisted of 13 students and 1 commander, Lieutenant Charles Taylor. After their objective was over, they were told to fly an additional 67 miles east and then turn north for 73 miles and back to base. And this course would take them on the triangular path. It's that yellow triangle over there. And an hour and a half after takeoff, Lieutenant Charles Taylor reported that his compasses were not working, and he believed that he was over the Florida Keys, which is this purple line right down there. And assuming he was correct, they told him to just fly north towards Miami. Well, in 1945, they didn't have GPSs, and so pilots had to rely on their starting point, their speed, their time of flight, and in what direction. From BermudaTractions.com, it says that while Taylor was an experienced pilot, he did have a history of getting lost. He was lost twice during the World War II, and on 2 occasions, he had to ditch his plane into the sea to get rescued. Secondly, he did not have a good knowledge about the area of east and south of Florida. So throughout the day, they did not hear anything from Flight 19, and the last transmission that they received was at 7:04. And at 7:27 p.m., they sent out 2 Martin Mariner planes to search for them, and so the search continued throughout the night and the next day, but they did not find them. Strangely enough, one of the mariners that were sent out to find them did not return. So in conclusion, from worldmysteries.com, over 100 airplane disappearances and over 1,000 lives lost since 1945. I mean, that's a lot, but this is 1,000 lives that we have no idea what exactly happened to them. So the Bermuda Triangle has always been a mystery and still is, whether you believe aliens abducted them or the Atlantis' advanced technology sucked up all the ships and the planes, or the sea monsters ate everything. It's up to you. So to my speech from StrangeGRTripod.com, I leave you with this quote: "Perhaps the oceans remain a secret to man, a mystery to keep us away from the power nature truly has over man. This mystery can serve as a warning and to inspire awe into men's heart, looking at the greatness and power of this great creation." Thank you.
Dulce, what did you think?
Interesting topic for sure. You were kind of fidgety, looked a little nervous, and it's okay to be nervous, just try not to show it so much, because it was obvious.